The rain fell in heavy drops on the twisted metal remains of what used to be a peaceful farming settlement. Smoke still rose from the burned houses, and the air smelled of destruction and death. In this wasteland, two small figures moved carefully between the wreckage, searching for anything useful. Kira was 8 years old, with dirt-stained clothes and frightened eyes. Her younger sister, Mira, only 5, held tightly to Kira's hand as they picked through the ruins of their home. They had been hiding in the underground storage room when the ships came from the sky, bringing fire and death to everyone they loved. "Kira, I'm hungry," Mira whispered, her voice barely heard over the falling rain. "I know, little one. We'll find something soon," Kira replied, though she felt the same gnawing emptiness in her stomach. They had been searching for 2 days now, finding only scraps and memories of their destroyed life. As they moved toward what used to be the Henderson farm, Kira noticed something strange. There was a crater in the ground, still smoking slightly, with pieces of metal scattered around it. But what caught her attention was a figure lying motionless near the edge of the crater. "Stay back, Mira," Kira said, moving closer to investigate. The figure was a man, but unlike anyone Kira had ever seen. He wore strange clothing that looked like armor, colored in shades of green and brown. His skin was darker than most people in their settlement, and he had short black hair. Most interesting of all, he had markings on his clothing that she didn't recognize. Kira approached carefully. The man was breathing, but his breath came in short, painful gasps. She could see blood on his armor, and noticed that one of his legs was bent at a wrong angle. Next to him lay a weapon unlike anything she had seen before, sleek and deadly looking. "Is he dead?" Mira asked, having followed her sister despite the warning. "No, but he's hurt badly," Kira replied. She knelt beside the stranger and gently shook his shoulder. Sir, can you hear me?" The man's eyes opened slowly, revealing brown eyes that seemed to take in everything around him instantly. He tried to sit up but winced in pain and fell back down. "Easy there, soldier," he said to himself in a language Kira had never heard before. Then, looking at the girls, he switched to their language, though he spoke with a strange accent. "Are you kids okay? Where are your parents?" Kira felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. "They're dead. Everyone's dead. The Empire ships came 3 days ago and killed everyone." The man's expression hardened. "Empire ships? You mean the Galactic Empire?" "Yes," Kira said, tears now flowing freely. "They came in the morning. Big ships with guns. They said our settlement was harboring rebels, but we're just farmers. Mama told us to hide in the cellar, but then the shooting started and the burning, and she couldn't continue." The Marine struggled to sit up again, this time succeeding despite the obvious pain. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "I'm Kira, and this is my sister Mira. What's your name?" "Are you from another planet?" "I'm Sergeant Marcus Williams, United States Marine Corps," he said, his voice becoming stronger. "And yes, I'm from a planet called Earth. I was on a reconnaissance mission when my ship was shot down." Mira stepped closer, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you a soldier? Can you fight the bad men who killed Mama?" Marcus looked at the 2 little girls, both dirty and scared, but still alive in a settlement where everyone else had died. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, about how he would want someone to help her if she were in the same situation. "I'm going to try, little one, but first I need to get my strength back. Can you help me find some shelter?" Kira pointed toward a partially collapsed barn about 100 meters away. The Anderson barn is still mostly standing. There might be medical supplies in the house next to it. Marcus nodded and reached for his rifle. As he tried to stand, his injured leg gave out and he fell back with a grunt of pain. Without hesitation, Kira moved to his side and offered her shoulder for support. "Mira, help me," she called to her sister. Together, the 2 girls helped the wounded Marine to his feet. It was slow going, and Marcus had to lean heavily on them, but eventually they made it to the barn. Inside, they found some old blankets and a relatively dry corner. While Marcus rested, Kira and Mira searched the nearby farmhouse. They returned with bandages, some pain medication, and even some canned food they had found in the cellar. As night fell, they sat around a small fire that Marcus had managed to build. The girls ate their first real meal in days while Marcus cleaned and bandaged his wounds. "Tell me more about the Empire attack," Marcus said as he worked on his injured leg. Kira spoke quietly, her voice filled with pain. "They came at dawn. 5 big ships, all black with red markings. They didn't even give any warnings. They just started shooting at everything. The adults tried to fight back with hunting rifles, but their weapons were too powerful. Did you see what the soldiers looked like? They weren't people like us, Mira said, speaking up for the first time in hours. They were tall and gray, with big eyes and no hair. They made clicking sounds when they talked. Marcus nodded grimly. He recognized the description. Zorithians, one of the Empire's most ruthless species. They were known for their efficiency in eliminating entire populations. How many ships landed? Only one landed, Kira replied. The others stayed in the sky and shot from up there. Maybe 30 soldiers came out of the ship that landed. They went house to house, making sure everyone was dead. Marcus felt a familiar anger rising in his chest. It was the same feeling he had gotten during the liberation of Kepler 438b, when he had seen what the Empire did to human colonies. But this time it was personal. These two girls had lost everything and they were depending on him. "Listen to me, girls," he said, his voice serious but gentle. "I'm going to make you a promise. The people who did this to your family and your town, they're going to pay for what they did, but I need your help to make that happen." Kira looked at him with hope in her eyes for the first time since the attack. "What can we do? We're just kids. You know this area better than I do. You know where the Empire might have left equipment or supplies. And most importantly, you know I'm here to help." Marcus reached out and took both girls' hands in his. "From now on, we're a team. We're going to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." As the fire burned low, the three unlikely allies settled in for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time since the attack, Kira and Mira had hope. They had found a protector and he had found a reason to fight. Marcus woke before dawn, his body aching but his mind sharp. 3 days of rest and the girls' careful nursing had helped his broken leg begin to heal, though he still needed support to walk properly. Kira and Mira slept peacefully nearby, curled up together under a blanket they had found. The Marine quietly checked his equipment. His rifle was in perfect condition, and his communication device was finally working again after Kira had helped him repair the damaged circuits with parts from an old radio. He had managed to send a brief message to his unit, but he wasn't sure when or if help would arrive. As the sun rose, the girls began to stir. Mira was the first to wake up, and she immediately looked around until she spotted Marcus. "Good morning, Mr. Marine," she said with a small smile. It was the first time Marcus had seen her smile since they met. "Good morning, Mira, and you can call me Marcus." He handed her a cup of water and some dried fruit they had found. "How did you sleep?" "Better than in the cellar," she replied honestly. "Are we going to fight the bad aliens today?" Kira woke up and stretched. "Mira, don't bother Marcus with silly questions." "It's not silly," Marcus said gently. "And yes, we are going to do something about the Empire. But first, I need to understand exactly what happened here and what resources we have." Over breakfast, Marcus asked the girls detailed questions about their settlement and the attack. He learned that Pine Valley had been home to about 200 people, mostly farmers and their families. The settlement had no military defenses and no connection to any rebellion against the Empire. "The Empire has been expanding into this sector for the past year," Kira explained. "They've taken over 6 other planets in our system. Pine Valley was one of the last independent settlements." "But why did they kill everyone?" Marcus asked. "Usually the Empire tries to use local populations as workers." "Commander Zix said we were contaminated," Mira said quietly. "He said humans carry a disease that makes other species sick, so we had to be eliminated." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He had heard similar lies before. It was a standard Empire excuse for genocide when they wanted to take a planet's resources without dealing with the native population. "That's not true," he told the girls firmly. "Humans don't carry any disease. They lied because they wanted your land without having to deal with people living on it." Kira stood up and walked to the barn door, looking out at the destroyed settlement. "Will more Empire ships come back?" "Probably not soon," Marcus replied. "From what you've told me, they think everyone here is dead. They'll likely send a colonization ship in a few months to start setting up mining operations." Marcus spent the morning teaching the girls basic survival skills while he gathered intelligence. He showed them how to move quietly, how to hide effectively, and how to signal him if they saw anything dangerous. In the afternoon, they ventured out to explore the crash site of Marcus's ship. The small reconnaissance vessel was completely destroyed, but Marcus was able to salvage some useful equipment. He found ammunition for his rifle, a medical kit, and most importantly, a portable sensor array that could detect approaching ships. "What's this?" Kira asked, pointing to a small device Marcus was examining. It's a translator. It can understand and speak almost any language in the galaxy, including Zorithian. Marcus clipped the device to his belt. This might come in handy. As they returned to the barn, Mira suddenly grabbed Marcus's arm. "I hear something," she whispered. Marcus immediately went alert, gesturing for the girls to get behind some debris. In the distance, they could hear the distinctive whine of anti-gravity engines. A small Empire patrol ship was approaching the settlement. "Why are they back?" Kira whispered. Marcus watched through his scope as the ship landed near the center of town. 2 Zorithian soldiers emerged and began scanning the area with handheld devices. "They're checking for survivors," Marcus realized. Someone must have reported that not all bodies were accounted for. The aliens moved methodically through the ruins, their sensors sweeping every building. Marcus calculated their pattern and realized they would reach the barn within an hour. "We need to move," he said quietly. "Kira, is there anywhere we can hide that they wouldn't think to look?" Kira thought for a moment. "The old mine shaft, about 2 kilometers north. It's been abandoned for years, and the entrance is hidden by fallen rocks." "Perfect. Can you guide us there without being seen?" "Yes, but we'll have to go through the forest and its rough terrain." Marcus nodded. Despite his injured leg, he couldn't risk the girls being discovered. They quickly gathered their supplies and slipped out the back of the barn. The journey to the mine was challenging. Marcus had to stop frequently to rest his leg, and they had to move carefully to avoid making noise. Kira proved to be an excellent guide, leading them along animal paths that were almost invisible. They reached the mine just as the Zorithian patrol was finishing their search of the barn. From their hiding place among the rocks, they watched the aliens' ship lift off and disappear into the sky. The old mine shaft provided perfect shelter. It went deep enough underground to hide their heat signatures from orbital scans, and there were several chambers where they could set up a proper base of operations. That evening, as they settled into their new hideout, Marcus began planning their next moves. He spread out a map that Kira had drawn of the local area and studied it carefully. "The Empire will be back," he told the girls. "Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. When they come, we need to be ready." "What can we do against soldiers with ships and energy weapons?" Kira asked. Marcus smiled grimly. "You'd be surprised what 3 determined people can accomplish. The Empire has one big weakness. They think humans are weak and primitive. They won't expect organized resistance." Over the next few hours, Marcus outlined his plan. It was ambitious and dangerous, but it was their only chance. They would need to gather intelligence on Empire operations in the system, identify key targets, and find a way to strike back effectively. "The first thing we need to do is establish contact with other human settlements in the system," Marcus explained. "If Pine Valley was attacked, others might be targets too. We need to warn them and organize a resistance." "How can we contact anyone?" Mira asked. "The Empire controls all the communication satellites." "There are ways," Marcus said. "Old-fashioned radio, courier ships, even message drones if we can build them. The Empire monitors high-tech communications, but they often ignore primitive methods." Kira studied the map carefully. "There's a trading post on Gamma Station about 3 days' travel by civilian transport. Lots of different species go there, and humans run some of the businesses. That's perfect. If we can get there, we can start building a network of contacts and gathering intelligence." As they prepared for sleep, Marcus felt a familiar determination settling over him. He had been in hopeless situations before, and he had learned that the best response to overwhelming odds was careful planning and precise action. "Marcus," Mira said softly in the darkness, "yes? Are you really going to make the bad aliens pay for killing Mama?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the promise he had made. "Yes, Mira, I promise you they're going to pay. And we're going to make sure they never hurt anyone else the way they hurt your family." In the darkness of the mine, 3 humans began planning a war against an empire that controlled half the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but Marcus had learned something important during his years as a Marine. Humans were capable of impossible things when they had something worth fighting for. 2 weeks passed in the hidden mine shaft, and Marcus's strength had returned almost completely. His legs still ached in cold weather, but he could move without assistance and even run short distances when necessary. More importantly, he had used the time to transform Kira and Mira from frightened refugees into capable resistance operatives. "Remember, keep your movements small and controlled," Marcus instructed as he watched Kira practice with a makeshift knife. A smaller person has to be smarter and faster than a bigger opponent. Kira nodded and repeated the defensive sequence he had taught her. At 8 years old, she was too young to be learning combat skills, but Marcus knew that in their situation, every advantage could mean the difference between life and death. Mira, meanwhile, had shown an unexpected talent for electronics. Marcus had salvaged components from various devices, and she had helped him build a sophisticated communication array that could intercept Empire transmissions without being detected. Marcus, I'm picking up something, Mira called from her position at the radio equipment. It sounds like the clicking language the soldiers used. Marcus quickly moved to listen. Through his translator, he heard 2 Zorithian officers discussing patrol schedules for the outer settlements. More importantly, they mentioned that a supply convoy would be traveling through Sector 7 in 3 days. This is our chance, Marcus said quietly. A supply convoy means weapons, equipment, and hopefully some intelligence about their operations. But there will be guards, Kira pointed out. How can 3 of us attack a whole convoy? We don't attack it directly, Marcus explained. We're going to be smarter than that. He pulled out the map and showed them the route the convoy would take. It passed through a narrow canyon about 50 kilometers from their hideout, a perfect place for an ambush. The key is not to fight fair, Marcus continued. We're going to use the environment, surprise, and the Empire's own overconfidence against them. Over the next 2 days, they prepared carefully. Marcus used materials from the mine to create several improvised explosive devices, while Kira and Mira gathered supplies and planned their escape routes. They also used their radio to try contacting other human settlements, sending coded messages on old emergency frequencies. On the 2nd day, they received a response. Zeta Base, this is Sanctuary Station, came a crackling voice through the radio. We read you, unknown caller. Please identify. Marcus took the microphone carefully. Sanctuary Station, this is Marcus Williams, United States Marine Corps. We're survivors from Pine Valley Settlement. The Empire conducted a massacre here 2 weeks ago. There was a long pause before the voice responded. Mr. Williams, this is Dr. Sarah Chen, Administrator of Sanctuary Station. We've been monitoring Empire communications. Pine Valley was reported as completely eliminated. The reports were wrong. I'm here with 2 survivors and we're planning to strike back. Are there other resistance groups in the system? There are several small groups, but they're poorly coordinated and lacking military experience. Most are just trying to hide and survive. Marcus felt a spark of hope. Dr. Chen, I'd like to propose something. After we complete our current operation, would it be possible to meet and discuss coordinating our efforts? That's ambitious, Mr. Williams, but these people need hope. If you can prove that effective resistance is possible, you might have volunteers. We'll be in touch after our mission. Williams out. The night before the convoy ambush, Marcus sat with the girls around their small heating unit, reviewing the plan one final time. Kira, your job is to be our eyes and ears. You'll be positioned on the ridge with the radio and the flare gun. If anything goes wrong, you signal Mira and get both of you to safety. What about you? Kira asked. I'll be in the canyon waiting for the convoy. Once they're in position, I trigger the explosives and disable their vehicles. Then I move in to secure intelligence and supplies. It sounds dangerous, Mira said quietly. Marcus knelt down and looked both girls in the eyes. Everything we do from now on is going to be dangerous. But we're not doing this for adventure. We're doing this because your mother and all the people of Pine Valley deserve justice. Early the next morning, they hiked to the ambush site. The canyon was perfect for their purposes. High walls on both sides, limited visibility, and only one way in or out. Marcus positioned his explosives at strategic points, while the girls took their positions on the ridge. At exactly 1400 hours, the convoy appeared. 3 vehicles, 2 armored transports and 1 command vehicle. Marcus counted 8 Zorithian soldiers total, plus whatever might be in the closed transports. He waited until all 3 vehicles were in the kill zone, then triggered the first set of explosives. The blast brought down rocks that blocked the convoy's retreat, while simultaneously damaging the rear transport's engine. The Zorithians reacted quickly, taking defensive positions behind their vehicles and scanning for threats, but they were looking for a larger attacking force, not a single human with superior knowledge of the terrain. Marcus used his rifle to target the command vehicle's communication array, cutting off their ability to call for help. Then he moved position and targeted the front transport's weapons systems. The alien soldiers began advancing up the canyon walls, trying to flank his position. This was what Marcus had been waiting for. He triggered his second set of explosives, causing a landslide that trapped 4 of the soldiers and forced the others back to their vehicles. Within 10 minutes, it was over. The convoy was disabled. Half the soldiers were trapped under rocks, and the survivors had taken cover behind the command vehicle. Marcus approached carefully, using his translator to call out to them. "Zorithian soldiers, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender your weapons and you will be treated according to military convention." There was a long pause before one of the aliens responded. "Human, you have made a grave error. The Empire will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy for this." "The Empire is welcome to try," Marcus replied. "But first, you're going to answer some questions." The interrogation that followed provided valuable intelligence. Marcus learned about Empire patrol schedules, supply lines, and, most importantly, the location of their main base in the system. It was a heavily fortified installation on the moon of Kepler 442c, with a garrison of over 300 soldiers. He also discovered something interesting in the convoy's cargo. Along with standard supplies and weapons, they were carrying data storage devices containing detailed maps of human settlements throughout the sector. The Empire was planning a systematic elimination campaign. "Kira, Mira, come down here," Marcus called over his radio. The girls descended carefully into the canyon. They stared in amazement at the disabled convoy and the captured soldiers. "You actually did it," Kira said in wonder. "We did it," Marcus corrected. This was a team effort. As they loaded supplies from the convoy into their packs, Marcus made another important discovery. One of the transports contained communication equipment far more advanced than anything he had expected to find. "With this, we can contact resistance groups throughout the sector," he told the girls. "We can coordinate attacks, share intelligence, and start building a real resistance movement." They spent the rest of the day securing useful equipment and intelligence before releasing the surviving Zorithian soldiers. Marcus knew that letting them go would alert the Empire to organized resistance, but it would also spread fear among their forces. A single human had defeated an entire convoy. That news would shake their confidence. As they hiked back toward their hideout, Mira tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Are we really going to fight the whole Empire?" Marcus looked down at the little girl who had become one of his most trusted allies. "We're going to fight as much of it as we need to. And we're going to win because we have something the Empire doesn't understand." "What's that?" "We're fighting for our homes, our families, and our future. They're just fighting because someone told them to." That night, as they set up their new communication equipment in the mine, messages began pouring in from human settlements across the sector. Word of the convoy attack had already spread, and groups that had been hiding were ready to join the fight. Marcus looked at his small army, 2 little girls who had lost everything but refused to give up hope. Tomorrow they would begin building something the Empire had never faced before. A unified human resistance that fought not for conquest, but for survival and justice. The war for the sector had begun, and humanity would not go quietly into the darkness. 3 weeks after the convoy ambush, Marcus stood in the main chamber of an abandoned mining facility that had become the headquarters of the growing human resistance. What had started as 3 people hiding in a cave had become a network of over 200 fighters spread across 6 settlements. "The communications relay on Epsilon Ridge is our primary target," Marcus explained to the assembled team leaders, pointing to a holographic map projected from salvaged Empire equipment. "If we can take it out, we'll blind their surveillance network for this entire sector." Dr. Sarah Chen, who had arrived from Sanctuary Station with 30 volunteers, studied the tactical display. "The intelligence indicates 40 Empire soldiers guarding the facility, plus automated defenses. Even with our numbers, this seems ambitious." "Ambitious is what we need," replied Captain Torres, a former Earth Defense Force officer who had been stranded in the sector when his ship was destroyed. "The Empire thinks we're just scattered refugees. It's time to show them what organized human resistance looks like." Kira and Mira sat at a side table, working on modifications to captured Empire communication devices. Over the past weeks, they had become the Resistance's unofficial intelligence-gathering team. Their ability to understand Empire technology had proven invaluable. "Marcus," Kira called softly, "we've intercepted something important." She handed him a translated message they had decoded from Empire communications. Marcus read it quickly, his expression growing grim. "What is it?" Dr. Chen asked. "Fleet Command is ordering a complete sterilization of 3 more settlements," Marcus said. "They're scheduled to begin the operation in 5 days." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what sterilization meant. The complete elimination of all human life, just like what had happened to Pine Valley. "How many people?" Captain Torres asked. "Nearly 800 civilians," Marcus replied, "including about 200 children." Mira looked up from her work, her young face serious. "We have to stop them." "The relay station isn't just about intelligence anymore," Marcus said, looking around the room. "If we can take out their communications, we can coordinate simultaneous strikes on their attack force before they reach the settlements." "That changes everything," Dr. Chen said. "We're not just talking about sabotage anymore. We're talking about open warfare against a superior force," Marcus nodded. "Anyone who isn't prepared for that should leave now. This is going to be dangerous, and there's a good chance some of us won't make it back." Nobody moved. "Then let's get to work," Marcus said. The next 2 days were spent in intensive preparation. Marcus divided the volunteers into 3 teams: assault, support, and evacuation. The assault team would attack the relay station directly, while the support team created diversions and secured escape routes. The evacuation team would be ready to rescue civilians from the targeted settlements if the mission failed. Marcus insisted on leading the assault team personally, despite protests from the other leaders. Kira and Mira would remain at headquarters, coordinating communications and monitoring Empire responses. "I don't like being left behind," Kira said as Marcus checked his equipment on the morning of the attack. "Someone needs to be here to coordinate the other teams," Marcus replied. "And if something happens to me, you and Mira are the only ones who fully understand the Empire communication systems." "Nothing's going to happen to you," Mira said firmly. "You promised to make them pay for Mama." Marcus knelt down and hugged both girls. "I keep my promises. We'll be back before you know it." The assault team moved out at dawn, using captured Empire vehicles to approach the relay station. Marcus had discovered that the Empire's own identification codes could get them past most security checkpoints, and their stolen uniforms would pass casual inspection. The relay station was built into the side of a mountain, with the main antenna array on the peak and the control center carved into the rock face below. Empire engineering was impressive, but it was also predictable. Marcus had studied dozens of similar installations during his military career. "Remember, we need to hold the facility long enough to extract all the intelligence data," Marcus reminded his team over the radio. "Priority targets are the main computer core and the communication logs." The attack began at exactly 1200 hours. Marcus's team approached in their stolen vehicles, maintaining radio silence until they were at the main gate. When the Zorithian guards requested identification, Captain Torres responded in perfect Empire standard, using codes they had captured from the convoy. The gates opened, and the vehicles entered the compound. They made it halfway to the main building before a sharp-eyed guard noticed that one of the soldiers was human. The alarm that followed was deafening, but Marcus's team was ready. They had rehearsed this scenario extensively, and everyone knew their role. The assault team moved immediately toward the control center while the support team engaged the garrison in the outer compound. Marcus fought his way through the facility's corridors, his rifle taking down surprised Zorithian soldiers with precise shots. His human reflexes and adaptability gave him a crucial advantage in the close quarters fighting. The control center was defended by 6 elite guards, but they were positioned to defend against a large attacking force, not a small team using unconventional tactics. Marcus used flashbang grenades to disorient them, then moved in with his team to secure the area. "Torres, start downloading everything from the main computer," Marcus ordered as he covered the entrance. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they organize a counterattack." "Already on it," Torres replied, connecting a portable storage device to the Empire system. "This is incredible. They've got detailed files on every human settlement in the sector." Outside, the sound of fighting was intensifying. The Empire garrison was larger than intelligence had suggested, and they were mounting a determined defense. "Marcus, this is Chen," came Dr. Chen's voice over the radio from the support team. "We've got Imperial reinforcements incoming. 3 aircraft, ETA 5 minutes, copy that." "Torres, how much longer?" 2 more minutes for the complete download. Marcus made a quick decision. "All teams prepare for emergency extraction. We're taking everything we can and getting out." As Torres finished downloading the files, Marcus planted explosive charges throughout the control center. Even if they couldn't hold the facility, they could deny it to the Empire. The extraction was chaotic but successful. Marcus's team fought their way back to their vehicles while the support team provided covering fire. The stolen Empire aircraft they had brought allowed them to evacuate quickly, though not before the facility's defenders damaged 2 of their vehicles. As they flew away from the smoking ruins of the relay station, Marcus felt a grim satisfaction. They had achieved their primary objective and struck a serious blow against Empire operations in the sector. Back at headquarters, Kira and Mira had been monitoring Empire communications throughout the attack. As soon as Marcus's team returned, they had important news. The Empire's attack on the settlements has been postponed, Kira reported excitedly. Without the relay station, they can't coordinate their forces effectively. How long do we have? Marcus asked. At least a week, maybe more, Mira replied. But they're really angry. Commander Zix is requesting a full battle fleet to deal with the human insurgency. Marcus studied the intelligence data they had captured from the relay station. It contained detailed information about Empire operations throughout the sector, including troop movements, supply schedules, and most importantly, the locations of their command centers. We've bought time for the civilians, he said to the assembled resistance leaders, but we've also escalated this conflict beyond anything the Empire expected. They're going to come at us with everything they have. Dr. Chen looked at the tactical display showing Empire fleet movements. Can we handle a full military response? Not in a direct confrontation, Marcus admitted. But we don't have to fight them directly. We just have to make it too expensive for them to continue their genocide. Over the following days, the captured intelligence allowed the resistance to plan a series of coordinated strikes against Empire installations across the sector. Supply depots, communication centers, and patrol bases were all targeted simultaneously. The Empire had expected to face scattered, poorly organized rebels. Instead, they found themselves fighting a coordinated military campaign, led by experienced human soldiers who understood both tactics and technology. As Marcus reviewed reports from successful missions across the sector, Kira approached him with a decoded message. What is it? He asked. It's from Earth Command, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. They've been monitoring our communications. A fleet is being dispatched to support resistance operations in this sector. Marcus felt a surge of hope. The girls had lost their mother and their home, but they had helped build something extraordinary. What had started as a desire for revenge had become a movement that was attracting support from across human space. How long until the fleet arrives? He asked. 3 weeks, Kira replied. Marcus looked out at the bustling activity in their underground headquarters. 3 weeks to hold together a resistance movement against an empire that controlled half the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but then again, so had everything else they had accomplished. Then we'd better get ready for the real fight, he said. The first sign of the Empire's massive retaliation came at dawn on the 15th day after the relay station attack. Mira was monitoring communications when she detected the distinctive energy signatures of capital ships entering the system. Marcus, she called urgently. Big ships coming through the jump point. Marcus rushed to the communication center and looked at the sensor readings. His blood ran cold. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying a planet's surface, had just arrived with a fleet of escort vessels. Get me all team leaders on emergency frequency, Marcus ordered. Within minutes, voices were checking in from resistance cells across the sector. Dr. Chen from Sanctuary Station, Captain Torres from the northern settlements, Commander Hayes from the mining colonies, all reporting the same thing. The Empire had brought enough firepower to turn every human settlement to glass. This is Admiral Vex of the Imperial Third Fleet, came a transmission in accented but clear human standard. To the human insurgents who have been conducting terrorist activities in this sector, you have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Any humans found bearing arms after that time will be executed immediately. Kira looked up from her workstation, her young face pale but determined. They're scanning for our hideouts. The capital ships have sensors that can detect underground facilities. Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. The resistance had grown to over 400 active fighters, but they were spread across multiple planets with no heavy weapons or ships capable of fighting Imperial dreadnoughts. Marcus, Dr. Chen's voice came over the radio. Half my people want to surrender. They say fighting capital ships is suicide. And the other half? Marcus asked. They remember what happened to Pine Valley. They know surrender just means execution with extra steps. Captain Torres cut in from his position. We've got Imperial landing craft deploying from the fleet. Looks like they're planning to assault our known positions simultaneously. Marcus made his decision. All units implement Exodus protocol immediately. We're going underground, deeper than before. We can't fight their ships, but we can make sure they can't find us. The Exodus protocol had been developed as a worst-case scenario plan. Every resistance cell would abandon their current bases and move to pre-selected deep underground positions that were virtually undetectable. They would survive the initial Imperial assault, then begin guerrilla operations once the Empire thought they had won. What about the civilian settlements? Dr. Chen asked. There are still thousands of people in the outlying colonies. We can't protect them directly, Marcus said grimly. But we can make the Empire pay such a high price for every settlement they attack that eventually they'll decide it's not worth it. The next 24 hours were chaotic. Resistance fighters moved quickly to their fallback positions while Imperial forces began systematic bombardments of suspected rebel hideouts. The mountains echoed with the sound of orbital strikes, and the sky was lit by the glow of burning forests where the Empire suspected humans might be hiding. Marcus, Kira, and Mira moved to their deepest bunker, a natural cave system that extended nearly a kilometer underground. They were accompanied by 30 other resistance fighters, including several technical specialists who would maintain communication with other cells. From their hidden position, they watched through concealed sensors as Imperial forces landed at their old headquarters. Hundreds of Zorithian soldiers and war machines swept through the abandoned facility, finding nothing but empty rooms and disabled equipment. They're angry, Mira observed, watching the aliens smash already broken furniture in frustration. Good, Marcus replied. Angry enemies make mistakes. The Imperial ground assault continued for 3 days. Orbital bombardments destroyed several abandoned resistance bases, and Imperial troops conducted house-to-house searches in every human settlement they could find. But they found no organized resistance, no weapons caches, and no intelligence about rebel operations. What they did find was a population that was far from cowed. In every settlement they searched, Imperial soldiers faced subtle sabotage, misdirection, and passive resistance. Equipment would mysteriously malfunction, guides would get lost, and supplies would go missing. More importantly, every act of Imperial aggression was being recorded and transmitted to other systems by hidden communication relays. The galaxy was watching as the Empire conducted systematic oppression against human civilians. On the 4th day, Marcus decided it was time to remind the Empire that the resistance was still active. Target the supply convoy moving through Sector 12, he ordered over the encrypted communication network. Hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they can respond. The attack was perfectly executed. A convoy of 20 Imperial vehicles carrying ammunition and supplies for the occupation forces was destroyed in a coordinated ambush. The resistance fighters struck from concealed positions, destroyed the entire convoy in less than 5 minutes, then vanished back into the wilderness before Imperial aircraft could arrive. Admiral Vex's response was swift and brutal. The nearest human settlement, a farming community called Haven Valley, was subjected to orbital bombardment as retaliation. 300 civilians died in the attack. Marcus felt sick as he watched the reports, but he also saw something important in the Imperial communications that Kira intercepted. The Admiral was facing pressure from his own commanders. The fleet had been deployed to crush a rebellion quickly and efficiently, but instead they were bogged down in an expensive occupation, with no clear end in sight. They're having supply problems, Kira reported. The Admiral is requesting additional support ships because his ammunition stores are running low. And their soldiers are getting tired, Mira added. Listen to this. She played a recorded conversation between Zorithian officers complaining about the stress of constantly watching for ambushes. Marcus began to see a strategy emerging. The Empire was used to quick, decisive conflicts where their superior technology and firepower could force immediate surrender. They were not prepared for a prolonged guerrilla war where every victory came at a high cost. Send a message to all cells, Marcus ordered. Increase the tempo of attacks. Hit their patrols, their supply lines, their communication relays. Don't give them a moment of peace. Over the following week, resistance operations intensified dramatically. Imperial patrols were ambushed daily. Supply convoys required massive escorts to move safely. And communication equipment was sabotaged so frequently that the Empire had to post permanent guards on every facility. The psychological effect on Imperial forces was devastating. Soldiers who had expected to fight a quick campaign against primitive rebels found themselves in a nightmare of constant harassment by an enemy they could rarely see and never seem to defeat. The breakthrough came when Captain Torres managed to capture an Imperial intelligence officer during a raid on a communication post. Under interrogation, the officer revealed crucial information about Imperial command structure and fleet movements. "There's a supply fleet arriving in 6 days," Torres reported to Marcus. 12 cargo ships with ammunition, food, and replacement equipment. It's heavily guarded, but it's also the only thing keeping their occupation force operational. Marcus studied the intelligence data. The supply fleet would be vulnerable during its approach to the main Imperial base. If the resistance could somehow damage or destroy even part of it, the entire Imperial operation in the sector would be severely compromised. "Do we have any way to attack ships in space?" Dr. Chen asked during their emergency council meeting. "Not directly," Marcus replied, "but we don't need to destroy them in space. We just need to make sure they can't unload their cargo." He outlined a daring plan. The Imperial base where the supply ships would dock was built on an asteroid with artificial atmosphere generators. If the resistance could infiltrate the base and sabotage the docking facilities during the supply fleet's arrival, they could trap the ships and prevent them from delivering their crucial supplies. "It's a suicide mission," Captain Torres said bluntly. "The base has over 1,000 Imperial soldiers and automated defenses." "Maybe not," Kira said quietly. She had been studying captured Imperial technical manuals and had discovered something interesting about their security systems. Their automated defenses have a vulnerability. If we can get access to the central computer, we can turn their own weapons against them. Marcus looked at the young girl who had become one of his most trusted advisors. "What would you need?" "Direct access to the base's computer core," Kira replied, "and someone who can fight their way through the facility while I work." "I volunteer," Mira said immediately. "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "You're both staying here where it's safe." "We're the only ones who understand their computer systems well enough to make this work," Kira argued. "And we have the best chance of getting through their security without being detected." Marcus realized they were right, and it terrified him. The two little girls who had lost everything to Imperial brutality were now proposing to walk into the heart of an enemy stronghold, to strike, a blow that could determine the fate of human resistance in the sector, but they were also the best chance of success. Over the past months, Kira and Mira had proven themselves to be far more than victims. They had become skilled intelligence operatives and technical experts whose knowledge of Imperial systems was unmatched. "If we do this," Marcus said slowly, "we do it right. Full planning, multiple backup options, and a clear extraction plan." Kira smiled for the first time in days. "Don't worry, Marcus. We've learned from the best." As they began planning what could be the most important mission of the Resistance campaign, Marcus couldn't help but think about how much had changed since he first met two frightened little girls in the ruins of their destroyed home. They had grown into warriors, and now they were ready to take the fight directly to the heart of Imperial power. The Empire thought they were fighting scattered refugees. They were about to discover they were fighting something far more dangerous. Humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The Imperial supply fleet arrived exactly on schedule, 12 massive cargo ships escorted by 4 heavy cruisers. From their hidden observation post on a nearby asteroid, Marcus watched through long-range sensors as the ships approached the main Imperial base. "Cargo ships are beginning docking procedures," Kira reported from her position at the monitoring equipment. "We have a 6-hour window before they finish unloading." Marcus checked his equipment one final time. His rifle was loaded, his explosives were properly set, and his communication gear was functioning perfectly. Beside him, Kira and Mira wore modified Imperial uniforms that would help them blend in during the infiltration. "Remember the plan," Marcus said quietly. "We get in through the maintenance shaft. I secure the route to the computer core. and you two work your magic on their systems. If anything goes wrong, you get out immediately and don't look back. We're not leaving without you, Mira said firmly. You will if I order it, Marcus replied. Your job is to complete the mission, not to rescue me. The three-person infiltration team launched from their hidden ship in a small maintenance pod designed to look like space debris. Imperial sensors were focused on the incoming supply fleet, making it easier to approach the base undetected. The maintenance shaft Marcus had identified led directly into the base's lower levels, bypassing most of the security checkpoints. It was a tight fit for an adult, but perfect for someone Kira or Mira's size. I'm going first, Marcus whispered as they reached the shaft entrance. Wait for my signal. The shaft was dark and cramped, filled with pipes and electrical conduits that made movement difficult. Marcus had to suppress his natural claustrophobia as he crawled through the narrow space, following a route he had memorized from captured Imperial blueprints. After 20 minutes of careful movement, he reached an access panel that opened into a storage room on level 7 of the base. Marcus listened carefully, hearing only the distant hum of machinery. He slowly opened the panel and peered out. The room was empty, filled with spare parts and maintenance equipment. Perfect. Clear, he whispered into his communicator. Come ahead. Kira and Mira moved through the shaft much more quickly than Marcus had, their smaller size allowing them to navigate the obstacles easily. Within minutes, all three were inside the Imperial base. Computer core is 12 levels up and 3 sections over, Kira whispered, consulting a mental map she had created from studying the base's layout. We'll need to use the service elevators to avoid the main corridors. They moved carefully through the base's lower levels, staying in maintenance areas and service corridors. Marcus was impressed by how well Kira had planned their route. They encountered only 2 Imperial technicians, both of whom were easily avoided. The real challenge came when they reached level 15, where the computer core was located. This section was heavily guarded, with Imperial soldiers at every checkpoint and automated sensors monitoring the corridors. There, Mira pointed to a ventilation grate near the ceiling. I can fit through that and access the computer core from the maintenance level above. Too dangerous, Marcus said. If you're detected up there, we'll have no way to help you. But it's the only way to reach the core without fighting through a dozen guards, Kira argued. And I need access to the main control interface, not just a terminal. Marcus realized they were right. The original plan had been to fight their way to the computer core, but the base's security was tighter than expected. A stealth approach was their only chance. 15 minutes, he said finally. If you're not back by then, I'm coming after you. Mira disappeared into the ventilation system while Marcus and Kira found concealment in a nearby storage alcove. Through his earpiece, Marcus could hear Mira's soft breathing as she crawled through the ducts above. Computer core is directly below me, Mira's voice came through the communicator. I can see the main interface through the grate. Any guards? 2 technicians, but they're facing away from the access point. I'm going in. Marcus held his breath as he listened to the soft sounds of Mira dropping into the computer core chamber. This was the most dangerous part of the mission. If she was detected now, the entire base would be alerted. I'm at the interface, Mira whispered. Beginning data transfer. While Mira worked on the computer systems, Marcus and Kira monitored Imperial communications. The base was still focused on the supply fleet operations, with most personnel busy with the massive unloading operation. Transfer complete, Mira reported after what felt like hours, but was actually only 8 minutes. I've uploaded our virus into their defense grid and downloaded their fleet coordination protocols. Coming back up. That's when everything went wrong. An Imperial patrol that wasn't supposed to be in their section rounded a corner just as Mira was climbing back into the ventilation grate. One of the soldiers spotted movement and raised the alarm. Intruders in Sector 15, came the shout over the base's communication system. Computer core compromised. Move, Marcus ordered, abandoning stealth for speed. He and Kira burst from their hiding place and ran toward the computer core room. Marcus's rifle cut down the 2 guards who were trying to apprehend Mira, while Kira activated the virus they had planted in the base's systems. Immediately, chaos erupted throughout the Imperial base. Automated defense turrets began firing at random targets. Emergency bulkheads sealed randomly and the base's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. The virus was working perfectly, turning the base's own systems against its occupants. "Virus is active," Kira reported as they ran toward their extraction point. "Defense grid is offline, and their docking clamps are malfunctioning." Through the base's windows, Marcus could see the supply fleet's cargo ships struggling to maintain their docking connections as the station's systems went haywire. Several ships had already been forced to undock to avoid damage, their precious cargo still sealed in their holds. "Security teams converging on our position," Mira warned, monitoring Imperial communications as they moved. "They're sealing exit routes." Marcus made a split-second decision. "Change of plans, we're going to the docking bay and stealing a ship." "That's not part of the plan," Kira protested. "Plans change," Marcus replied grimly. "Sometimes you have to improvise." They fought their way through corridors filled with confused Imperial soldiers who were dealing with their own malfunctioning equipment. Marcus's superior training and the chaos caused by their virus gave them a crucial advantage. The docking bay was in complete disorder. Imperial ships were launching and landing randomly as their automated systems struggled with the virus infection. It was perfect cover for an escape. Marcus identified a small Imperial courier ship that was fueled and ready for departure. "Can you fly that thing?" he asked Kira. "I've been studying Imperial ship systems for months," she replied. "How hard can it be?" As it turned out, quite hard. The Imperial ship's controls were designed for Zorithian physiology, and Kira had to stretch to reach important switches. But her understanding of Imperial technology served her well, and within minutes she had the ship powered up and ready for launch. "Imperial fighters launching to intercept," Mira reported from the co-pilot's seat. 4 ships armed with energy weapons." "Can we outrun them?" Marcus asked. "Maybe," Kira said uncertainly. "This ship is fast, but those fighters are designed for combat." The chase that followed was harrowing. Kira pushed the courier ship to its limits while Marcus tried to plot an escape route that would take them to friendly territory. Behind them, Imperial fighters fired energy bolts that lit up the space around their ship. The breakthrough came when the virus they had planted in the base's systems reached the Imperial fighter squadron's command center. Suddenly, the pursuing ships received conflicting orders, with some being told to return to base while others were ordered to continue the pursuit. The confusion lasted just long enough for Kira to pilot their stolen ship into an asteroid field, where the larger Imperial fighters couldn't follow safely. By the time the Imperials sorted out their communications, the 3 Resistance fighters had escaped. "Mission accomplished," Marcus said as they rendezvoused with the Resistance fleet at a hidden base. "What's the damage assessment?" Captain Torres, monitoring Imperial communications from the command ship, provided the answer. The supply fleet was forced to withdraw without unloading most of their cargo. Imperial defensive systems are still malfunctioning, and they've lost coordination between their ground forces and orbital units. Dr. Chen added her own observations. More importantly, Imperial morale is collapsing. Half their soldiers are requesting transfers, and their officers are arguing among themselves about how to deal with the resistance. But the most significant news came from Mira, who had been analyzing the data they had stolen from the Imperial computer core. "Marcus, you need to see this," she said excitedly. "The intelligence we captured includes Imperial fleet positions for the entire sector, and there's something else. Earth Command's relief fleet is only 3 days away." Marcus looked at the tactical display showing Imperial and human fleet positions. For the first time since the resistance began, they had a complete picture of the strategic situation. More importantly, they had hope. "Send a message to all resistance cells," Marcus ordered. "Full coordinated assault in 72 hours. When our fleet arrives, I want the Empire so damaged and demoralized that they'll be ready to negotiate." Kira and Mira exchanged a look of satisfaction. They had come a long way from the 2 frightened little girls hiding in a cellar while their world burned. Now they were key members of a resistance movement that was about to change the balance of power in the entire sector. "Are we really going to win?" Mira asked. Marcus looked out at the stars, thinking about all the lives lost to Imperial brutality, and all the people who were counting on them to succeed. "Yes," he said with quiet confidence, "we're going to win." The Earth Defense Force fleet arrived exactly on schedule, jumping into the system with a flash of displaced energy that lit up sensor screens across the sector. Admiral Sarah Mitchell commanded the task force from the bridge of the battleship UES Defiance, and her first communication went directly to the Resistance headquarters. "This is Admiral Mitchell to Resistance Forces. We're here to finish what you started." Marcus stood in the command center of their hidden base, watching tactical displays that showed the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. 27 human warships arranging themselves in battle formation. Beside him, Kira and Mira monitored communications with the excitement of children watching their favorite heroes arrive to save the day. "Admiral, this is Sergeant Marcus Williams. We've prepared detailed intelligence packages on all Imperial positions and weaknesses, transmitting now." The data that Kira and Mira had gathered over months of resistance operations proved invaluable to the Earth fleet. Imperial defensive positions, supply lines, communication networks, and command structures were all laid bare for the attacking force. Admiral Vex's response to the human fleet's arrival was predictable. The Imperial Third Fleet moved to intercept, confident that their superior numbers and firepower would carry the day. They had 3 dreadnoughts and dozens of escort vessels against the Earth force. What they didn't expect was the coordinated resistance uprising that began the moment the human fleet engaged. "All resistance cells, execute Operation Liberation," Marcus broadcast on all frequencies. Across the sector, human fighters emerged from hiding to attack Imperial ground installations. Supply depots exploded, communication relays went dark, and garrison bases found themselves surrounded by determined resistance, fighters who knew every hiding place and escape route in their territory. The space battle that followed was unlike anything the sector had ever seen. Imperial ships, already worn down by months of guerrilla warfare and supply shortages, found themselves fighting both the Earth fleet and saboteurs within their own ranks. The virus that Kira and Mira had planted in Imperial computer systems had spread throughout their network, causing critical systems to fail at the worst possible moments. Admiral Vex's flagship, the Dreadnought Dominator, suffered a catastrophic reactor failure when its automated systems malfunctioned during the height of the battle. The explosion destroyed 2 escort vessels and crippled a third, effectively ending Imperial resistance in space. The ground campaign was equally decisive. Imperial forces, already demoralized by months of unsuccessful occupation, found themselves facing a coordinated assault by resistance fighters who knew their weaknesses intimately. One by one, Imperial strongholds fell to combined attacks by orbital bombardment and ground assault. Imperial garrison at Epsilon Base is requesting surrender terms, Dr. Chen reported from her field command post. "Accepted," Marcus replied. "Standard military convention. Treat prisoners with dignity." It was a sharp contrast to Imperial policy, which had shown no mercy to human civilians. The difference was not lost on the remaining Imperial forces, many of whom chose surrender over hopeless resistance. The final Imperial stronghold was Admiral Vex's command base on the moon of Kepler 442c, the same installation Marcus had first identified as a target months earlier. Rather than attempt another infiltration, the combined Earth and Resistance forces laid siege to the base, cutting off all supplies and communication. After 3 days, a white flag appeared above the Imperial Command Center. Admiral Vex himself came out to surrender. His gray uniform stained and his usually perfect appearance disheveled. He was accompanied by the surviving members of his command staff, all looking defeated and exhausted. Marcus, now wearing the uniform of a Earth Defense Force colonel that Admiral Mitchell had commissioned for him, stood with Kira and Mira as the Imperial officers formally surrendered. "I demand to know how primitive humans defeated the Imperial Third Fleet," Admiral Vex said, his translator making his clicks and whistles into accented standard. "We weren't fighting for conquest," Marcus replied quietly. "We were fighting for our homes, our families, and our right to exist. That makes all the difference." The Admiral looked at Kira and Mira, recognition dawning in his large eyes. "You're the children from Pine Valley." "Yes," Kira said, stepping forward with no fear. "You killed our mother and everyone we loved, but we didn't let you win." "Children should not be warriors," Admiral Vex said, sounding almost sad. "Children shouldn't have to watch their mothers die," Mira replied simply. "You made us warriors. We chose to be good ones. The formal surrender ceremony took place 3 days later aboard the UES Defiance. Representatives from every human settlement in the sector were present, along with delegations from several non-human species who had been secretly supporting the resistance. Admiral Mitchell read the terms of surrender, which included full Imperial withdrawal from human-controlled space, reparations for the destroyed settlements, and guarantees that no retaliatory action would be taken against human colonies. This treaty establishes the free human sector, Admiral Mitchell announced. All human settlements within these boundaries will be under Earth Defense Force protection, with local governance by elected representatives. The celebration that followed lasted for days. Across the sector, human settlements that had lived in fear of Imperial attack held festivals and memorial services for those who had died fighting for freedom. But for Marcus, Kira, and Mira, the most important moment came quietly, in a small ceremony at the site where Pine Valley used to stand. "We're building a memorial here," Dr. Chen explained as they stood among the ruins of the settlement. "A place to remember everyone who died and everyone who fought back." Marcus knelt beside the graves they had dug for Kira and Mira's parents, placing flowers that the girls had picked from the wild gardens that were beginning to grow again among the ruins. "Mama would be proud of us," Mira said softly. "She would be proud of who you've become," Marcus agreed. "Both of you. What happens now?" Kira asked. "The war is over. Do we go back to being normal kids?" Marcus smiled, thinking about how much they had all changed since that first day in the rain. "I don't think any of us were ever normal, but that's not necessarily a bad thing." Admiral Mitchell had offered Marcus a permanent commission in the Earth Defense Force, with the opportunity to establish a new military academy in the free human sector. The academy would train both human and allied species in the kind of asymmetric warfare that had proven so effective against the Empire. "Will you teach other people to fight like we did?" Mira asked. "I'll teach them to fight smart instead of just fighting hard," Marcus replied. "And I'll teach them that the best warriors are those who fight to protect others, not to conquer them." Kira had already been accepted into the Earth Defense Force Academy's accelerated program for exceptional students. At 8 years old, she was the youngest cadet in the Academy's history, but her understanding of Imperial technology and intelligence operations made her invaluable. Mira had chosen a different path. She wanted to help rebuild the destroyed settlements and ensure that the mistakes that led to the Imperial invasion were never repeated. Admiral Mitchell had arranged for her to work with the sector's new civil administration, helping to establish communication networks and early warning systems. As they prepared to leave Pine Valley for the last time, Marcus looked back at the memorial they had built. It was a simple stone monument with the names of everyone who had died in the Imperial attack, surrounded by a garden that would bloom every spring. "Do you think we really made a difference?" Kira asked. Marcus looked around at the sector they had helped liberate, thinking about the thousands of lives that had been saved and the future that was now possible for human settlements throughout the region. "2 little girls found a U.S. Marine," he said quietly. "They told him that the Galactic Empire had killed their mother, and together we made sure that never happens again." The transport ship that would take them to their new lives was waiting in orbit, but they stood for a few more minutes in the ruins of their old home. The wind blew through the memorial garden, carrying the scent of new flowers growing from old soil. "Ready?" Marcus asked. Kira and Mira nodded, taking his hands as they walked toward the shuttle that would carry them away from Pine Valley and toward whatever adventures awaited them in the free human sector. Behind them, the memorial stone stood as a permanent reminder that freedom always comes at a price. But that price is worth paying when brave people are willing to stand up for what's right. The war was over. The Empire had been defeated, and 3 unlikely heroes had proven that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior firepower, but from the determination to never give up hope. In the years that followed, historians would write about the Pine Valley resistance as the beginning of humanity's expansion into the galactic community as an equal partner rather than a conquered species. They would analyze the tactics, study the strategies, and debate the political implications. But for Marcus, Kira, and Mira, the real victory was simpler than that. They had kept their promise to a woman who died protecting her children, and they had ensured that her sacrifice would never be forgotten. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward new adventures and new challenges, the three friends knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. They had learned that family isn't just about blood relationships. It's about the people who stand with you when everything seems hopeless. And sometimes that's enough to change the galaxy.